All right, so this section is plotting points in a coordinate plane. So this is like nice and simple, just intro to graphing essentially. But we're going to label this first graph. So the first, well, it's the second page that I handed you, but anyways, the first page, we're going to label this graph just like generically with what a graph should look like. And then we will go with the other one and label some of the points on there. And some of them you'll do for homework. And then there's a few other things that you'll do out of the section for homework as well. So on a graph, each section of the graph is called a quadrant, and they have numbers, and it's really important that you learn them now because they continue on throughout all the rest of math with many other things that we do, so it's important that you know the names of them. So up here, this one on the top right is quadrant 1. Top left is quadrant 2. Bottom left is quadrant 3. And bottom right is quadrant 4. And they usually use Roman numerals. It doesn't really matter if you use Roman numerals or like actual numbers. On the graph, the point, let's do this first. This right here, this line going across with the arrows on it is the x-axis. The one going up and down is the y-axis. And then, I need a different color. We label our axis points as well. You at least need to like label a couple of them when you're doing it, but for the sake of this right now, we're going to just label everything. So on the x-axis, this point here at the middle would be 0 where they intersect. That's 0 on the x and 0 on the y. Going right, this would be 1. This would be 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth all the way out. Going up, 1, 2, 3, 4. So going to the right and going up are positive numbers. Going to the left and going down are going to be negative numbers. So on the x-axis over here, this would be -1. This would be -2, -3, -4, so on and so forth. And then going down on the y-axis, same thing. This is -1, -2, -3, -4. Yeah.
So when you're going down or across, does like that last line count as like, let's say, for the x-axis, like would it count as 6?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just whatever fits on your graph. So like you don't need to like label out like significantly farther than like however big your graph is. Like I usually make really tiny graphs. I'm just making this one like excessively large so that we can see everything that's happening. Because obviously, normally if you have graph paper, your grid lines aren't that big. Yeah, they're usually a lot smaller. So I'm just doing it. That's why I gave you one that's like blown up so we could like write all over it and stuff.
Are we gonna need graph paper for these lessons?
It would be helpful on a few of the sections, but what I can do if you don't have graph paper, I may have some that people have like leftover time that you can use, but I can also print like sheets of graph paper off the internet, which is useful also. So like I can do that. I would say there's a few sections in here, like 4.1, like, I mean, I've basically given you what you need for that. For most of the questions in this section, that's basically, this right here is like 10 questions of the chapter or of the section. But there's like a few sections that will actually be graphing in, and some of them are just like talking about like step-by-step pieces of graphing. So if you have it, I would say it would be good to bring it for at least part of this chapter. But I don't like usually require it, but some of it is going to make your life easier, so I probably will require it for a couple of the sections. But like I said, I can print it if somebody doesn't have it or whatever. Let's see, what else do we need to put on this graph? Oh, so I'm going to go and write something down here first. So when we have a coordinate pair, or what we call an ordered pair, that is basically like a point on the graph, and it is in parentheses, and it's x then y. So alphabetical order, we always say the x point first, then the y point. And so that will tell us on the graph where things are. So the easiest point is this middle point here, right here. It's the origin, which is called 0, 0. So I'm going to write that down here. The point 0, 0 is at the origin. So if I had a point, say, right here, okay, this point would be at 1, 2, so it would be at 2 on the x, and then it's down 2, so at negative 2 on the y, so this would be the point 2, negative 2, just for reference for you. In quadrant 1, the x values are positive and the y values are positive. So when you have your ordered pair, it should be 2 positive numbers. So it'll be positive, positive. In quadrant 2, so over here, x values are negative because x is going this way. So these are negative numbers, but the y values are positive. So this is going to be a negative x number and a positive y number. Then quadrant 3, negative x and negative y. So both of these things are negative. Oh, come back. So negative and negative. And then over here in quadrant 4, x is positive, but y is negative. So this is going to be positive, then negative, like that. And so some of the questions are going to ask you to say what quadrant the point is in. If it falls, say, on the axis right here, what would this point be? Negative 3, 0. We always do x first, then y. So this is negative 3, 0. And when you're explaining where this point is, you would say that it's on the x-axis. Okay? If a point, so this point over here, this 2, negative 2, we would say it's in quadrant 4. Okay? So there's basically 6 different labels that you can give to a point. It can be in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4, or it can be on the x or the y axis. Or I guess the other option is it can be at the origin, which is that point 0, 0. Any questions about the setup of the graph before we move into a problem? All right. So, oh, I have to go up. Up here, we are going to be looking at these problems and labeling a few of them with where they are. I'm just going to write the ordered pairs on the graph. As far as the problems in the book, these are problems 3 through 12. I guess I could have written that on here. This is 3 through 12. So we'll pick a few of the letters and go over them, and then the ones that are left over, you'll just need to finish filling in for homework. So you'll just turn in that piece of paper that has just this graph on it And if you want to do the rest of your work like on the back or if there's room on the bottom, you can do that too. That's fine. So let's start with point A. So over here, and it's, this one didn't show up, but this is 1. So these are increments of 1. So in the book, all they did was label to tell you that they're counting in increments of 1, and this is how they show it. So I basically tried to copy this graph exactly from the book as much as possible. So where is point A? Y'all can just say them.
-2.
No, it's
3,
-2.
2.
Yep, 3, -2. So always the x point first. This is over 1, 2, 3, and then it's down 2. So 3, -2. How about point G up here?
-4.
-4.
Yes.
-5.
-5.
Oh, 5, yeah.
Yep, -5, 4.
Is it -4 or -5 first?
The x value first, so
That's
-5.
Oh, yeah, so that it is 5.
So get this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So -5, 4. And if you want, like I said, this is how the book shows the graph to you, where it only is giving you 1 and 1. If you want to go fill in that like 2, 3, 4, just to make it easier on you, -1, -2, -3, -4, like, and so on and so forth, you're welcome to fill that in. Like, I will not stop you. I just did it because that's how the book does it. And a lot of times, like, the farther into graphing we get, I sometimes will not label every single point. I'll do like every other one or something like that. But if it helps you, which I think it can be helpful, then you can fill them in. How about B right here?
-0.
Yep, so it stayed on the y-axis, so that means that the x value has to be 0, and then it's down 1, so 0, -1. How about J?
-4.
-4.
Yep, -4, -1. All right, any questions about those? No, not right now. Have y'all done this before?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Good. That's okay.
It's not that hard, like the early
All right. All right, I'm going to use this same graph because they stopped at letter K here, and problems 14 through 21 start at letter P and work their way up. So I'm going to write the problems here. So number 14, the point is 5, 5. 16, the point is, well, the point R is -3, 0. 18, T is -3, -4. And 20 is the point 1.5 and 4. Okay, so what these ones want us to do is they want us to basically plot the point, so we can just do that up here on the graph that I gave you, and then we're going to say what quadrant it's in by writing it beside it down here. Okay, so the point 5, 5, where is that going to be?
In quadrant 1.
Yep, it is in quadrant 1. And a lot of times, instead of writing quadrant, I'll just write Q1, Q2. That's totally fine as just an abbreviation for you. So it's in quadrant 1. Describe to me what I need to do to get to plot that point on the graph.
5x and then 5y from 5x. Like
Yep, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the X, and then 5 on the Y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's all the way up here. The very tippy top of my graph. Nope, I counted wrong. Something's wrong.
For that,
No, I
what do you
didn't.
mean
That's
by
right.
P, R, T, and like B?
This is just the label for the point. So I'm going to call this point right here P. And if you want to write beside it that that's 5, 5, like you absolutely can. That's totally fine. But that's just the label so that you can put them on the graph. Now, I will tell you a lot of times on a quiz when I'm having people graph points or whatever, I will give you one graph and I will have you graph like 7 or 8 points on that graph. So you've got to make sure you label them. So you need to make sure that you put the letter that's with the problem. So like this is point P, so you need to make sure you put P up here. If you put 5, 5, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine, because P tells me that's 0.55, and then that's what I'm looking for. Okay, any questions about labeling on that? I mean, we're going to do obviously a few more, but just checking. Okay, so the next one is point R. It's at -3, 0. So where is that?
It's on the x-axis.
Second quadrant.
So it is on the x-axis because if either of them are 0, you know it has to be on an axis. This one, the y is 0, so that means it's on the x-axis. So then -3, 0, so that would be over here, stays on the axis. So this is point R. Let's see. 18. Point T is -3, -4. Where would that be?
I'm in quadrant 3.
Yep, quadrant 3, so I just call that Q3. And how do I get there to plot that point?
X, Y.
So tell me, like, go left, right, up, down. Tell me where to go.
Left
You
and
go
down.
to the left, and then you go down 4.
Yep, so left 3, and then down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is point T. And then lastly, I have the point 1.5 and 4. Where would that be?
You go to the right, like 1.5 spaces. Oh, never mind. It's in quadrant 1.
Yes. Well, yes to both things that you said. This one's also in quadrant 1 because both things are positive. You said go right 1.5 and then what?
Up 4.
Yep, so notice I don't have a marking for 1.5, so I'm just going to split halfway between 1 and 2, and I need to go up 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is point V. All right, any questions about figuring out the location or where to put the point, anything like that? All right, the last stuff that I need to do is I am going to be graphing the function with the given domain. So you're probably going to have to, I don't really know how much room you have. Anyways, I'm going to go down here so that I have room to do it. So we have number 24. They give us the problem y equals -x plus 1, and they tell us that the domain, which means x values, I don't know if we've talked about that in here before or not, but the domain is -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And so basically what they want me to do is to make a table and plug these values in so that I can solve for y. So each of these are x values that are individually going to get plugged in, and I'm going to figure out what the y value is. So I'm going to set up a table. So my x values, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So y is this equation negative x plus 1. So what I do is I'm going to plug in the number for x. So I have negative, but x is, the number I'm plugging in is negative 2, and then plus 1, and I'm saying what that's equal to. So negative times negative is
Positive.
positive, so this is 2 plus 1, which is 3. So then, let me do it this way. Oh, that's going to annoy me. So the point that I'm going to get here, I'm going to do this as an xy point. The point that I'm going to get is negative 2, 3. Okay, and then I can put that on my graph. And we'll do that in a second. So then the next one, negative 1, I'm plugging in negative 1 for x. So I have negative times negative 1 plus 1. What is that going to be equal to?
2.
So 2. So this is at the point negative 1, 2. So then plug in 0. So I would get, obviously 0 can't be negative, but just for the sake of plugging in a negative, times 0 plus 1 is what? 1. So this is the point 0, 1. Then the plugging in 1, I get negative, x is 1 plus 1, so negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So this is the point 1, 0. Then plug in 2, negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So this is the point 2, negative 1. You can just put it on my desk. Thank you. And they put the papers, what we're doing, on your desk. All right, so now I'm going to graph this. So I'm going to set up a little graph, and it doesn't have to be like, why is this disappearing? Is this going to be annoying? It's going to be annoying. Can I just write up? Nope. Okay. Well. Well, let me do it down here. I don't know what's happening. Why will it not let me? Can I do it up here? Okay. I'm just going to be scrolling back and forth. All right, so I'm going to be counting by ones. I don't know what my biggest number was, but I think I'm good. All right, so what was the first point that I had? So I don't have to scroll. Negative 2, 3. So we go to negative 2 and down 3, and we put a point. What was the second point we had?
Wait,
Negative 1, 2.
wait, I thought the first one was negative 2 and 3.
Oh, did you not? You said negative 2, not negative 3.
Yeah, it's negative 2.
Oh, okay. Disregard. Negative 2 up 3. Okay, what was the other point, Isaiah?
Negative 1, 2.
Negative 1, 2. So negative 1 up 2. What's the next point?
0, 1.
0, 1. So at 0, then I go up to 1. What's the next point?
1, 0.
1, 0. So that's over here. And I think there was one more.
2
2,
and
negative 1.
2 and negative 1. So that's over here. What does this look like?
Oh, why?
Yep, if I connect the dots, it would give me a line, which this is going to be a lead into actually graphing lines
Oh.
later on. So, any questions about plugging in the numbers or anything like that? And what we need to do? Everybody's okay with this? I mean, the biggest part's plugging in the numbers. I trust that y'all are going to be able to plot points. I mean, I think you can plug in numbers also, but. So no other questions on this stuff? All right. So okay. Your problems are everything up here that we didn't fill in. So Harrison, I'll leave this on the screen in a second for you to fill it in so you know what you actually have to do for homework. So any point that we didn't fill in that's obviously on there in black you need to do. If you want, I'll write them down over here. 15 is the point Q, and it is -1,5. 17 is the point S, which is 0, 0. 19 is U, and that is 0, 6. And then 21 is W, and that's 3 and -2.5. So these are the ones that you'll need to actually put on the graph, like to plot, like what I did in red, and make sure you label where they are. And then in addition to those problems, the only other thing that you need to do for homework that's not on the sheet already is a problem like the one we just did, 25 and 27, okay? So the points on here, you need to finish labeling them. 15 through 21, you need to plot the point on that graph, and then you should be able to do 25 and 27 on the back of the paper that I gave you, and then you can just turn that in. Make sure you put your name on it, and because that page doesn't have the section number written on it, make sure you write the section number at the top. I mean, this one's pretty obvious what it is, but make sure you do that so that it's clear when I check it of what it goes with, because we may have other graph paper problems later on. Okay?
So just the rest of this?
Yeah.
15 through 21 and 25 and 27?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's not a lot. You probably can finish it in class. 25 and 27 will take the longest. But yeah. Okay. I'm going to scroll this up so hopefully Harrison can see what we did. Oh, that froze, but it's fine. Never put the letter